my goodness. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Metamona, and I'm here with my co-host, Andrew Wall, and Miss Gex and Miss Teen Crypto, who are in the chats with you guys, keeping you DGens in check. And we are back, baby. We're back with another CEO Roundtable, and this time we're diving into the metaverse.
That's right. CEO Roundtable is the only show that challenges top Web3 founders to address the toughest obstacles facing their industry. So for the first time ever, the leaders of the premier metaverses will all jointly discuss their vision of the future right here for you beautiful people right now.
That is so incredibly exciting, Andrew, and it is for the first time ever. You guys are in for a treat. We're going to get in here in just a second, but first, make sure you hit that subscribe button to support us in bringing you more roundtables like this one very, very soon. Now, if you're ready, Andrew, are you ready? We're going to bring these guys in here because you are all in for a treat. Look at this lineup right here. Hey guys.
Hi guys.
Hello.
Awesome to be here.
Great to be here.
What's up, everyone?
We're waiting for one more guest, but I'm going to go ahead and start doing the intros here as we wait for one more. Joining us from Futureverse, CEO and co-founder of Futureverse and Readyverse, Aaron McDonald is here, everyone.
Hey everybody, really stoked to be on the show, and it's bloody surreal and awesome at the same time. Just cool thing to do.
So excited to have you. It's so great. Joining us all the way from Miami, co-founder and creative director of Wilder World. Give it up for Frank Wilder.
Yo, what's good, everyone? Yeah, stoked to be here. Thank you for having me, and honored to take the stage with my fellow Metaverse accomplices.
How amazing is this? And all the way from Decentraland Metaverse, Executive Director of Decentraland, Yamal Jardi is here with us.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, definitely. We love having you guys. This is such a treat. And by the way, we have Sebastian. He is here, but he's having a bit of technical difficulties. So just bear with us as he adjusts his difficulties, and we'll get him in the room in just a minute.
Indeed. So today I've got 4 critical challenges for each of you to address in this episode. Are you ready? Challenge number 1 for metaverses. Number 1, attracting users. Number 2, simplifying onboarding. Number 3, scaling the metaverse. And number 4, keeping users around, obviously. So before we tackle all those challenges, we want to thank our sponsor of this show, Lizard Labs, who's helping Web3 gamers, builders, and investors scale up your game. They are hosting a Metaverse Roundtable X Space tomorrow. I will be there, along with community members and team members from Sandbox, Decentraland, Wilder World, and Futureverse team. We're going to dive deeper into these metaverse topics on the Lizard Labs show, Lizard Lookout on X. Click that link in chat, click that link in description, and just set your reminder. We're going to go way deeper into this metaverse content on that show. Let's go into challenge number 1, Mona.
All right, guys, we have a lot to cover, so we're going to jump right in. Founders, if you're ready, let's get into our first challenge, attracting users. Now, the challenge focus here is high fidelity versus low fidelity approach. Now, we know as the metaverse evolves, we're seeing a shift from early voxel style experiences to high fidelity environment. So in this challenge, we're going to talk about your strategies for attracting users with your chosen fidelity level and how you're leveraging intellectual property in your approach.
Yep. Yamal, I'm going to go to you first on this one. So in 2021, the term metaverse basically dominated all technology discussions. We all remember that. And Decentraland came out the gate early with this sort of lower fidelity, but charming graphic style, as you're aware, and was one of the greatest beneficiaries of that metaverse trend, right? I want to know from you, what were the challenges you faced in attracting millions of users then in 2021? And do you feel that the low fidelity art style met the market's expectations of what a metaverse should look like? back in 2021 when the masses were having a look at Decentraland?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think the Decentraland team took some technical decisions regarding the fidelity based on being able to run on web. Nowadays, you can access Decentraland just with your web browser. So that imposes some limitations on the fidelity you can have. Also, we are based on most of the content is user generated. In that sense, building content that is high fidelity, of course, is more expensive for our creators. So getting the sweet spot between high fidelity, low fidelity is what we try to aim. Low poly is the way we call it, and of course it has this particular aesthetic to Decentraland with a toon shader and has a toonish appeal. I think for us it was a sweet spot. I think looking forward, we want to increase the fidelity of the environments around the center and what happened when you reach the edge of the world, how you see and perceive the empty spaces, the forest. That's something that we are looking forward to improve, but low poly, I think, is the right fit for creators being able to create things easier and also fitting the rest of the environment. Um, Also, another point regarding the audience, I think there are pretty good examples out there of low fidelity games that have millions of users. So, other than building a AAA game that has a full narrative and story, high fidelity is not necessary for appealing to the masses.
Got it. Okay. So if low poly is the direction that you guys have gone and the reasons why are very practical, obviously. So that makes a lot of sense. Let's go to the other end of the spectrum on the super high fidelity end of the spectrum. Frank, let me bring it over to you. Your metaverse really captures let's call it the dream look, let's say, that most people imagine when they think of a metaverse, the hyper realistic, high fidelity, cutting edge graphics. You could have chosen you know, a generic high definition universe, but you decided to go with an extremely stylized metaverse. So do you feel like this poses a risk of turning off certain users that aren't feeling those very, very, very specific Wilder vibes? What are your thoughts on that? Going so stylish. Uh-oh, Frank.
Frank is frozen just a little bit. Let me see. And Sebastian is still
Too high
working.
fidelity for this bandwidth.
His bandwidth. There you go. And there's your answer to the question.
Incredible.
Oh, that's funny.
This is awesome. Actually, here. All right.
Maybe I can jump in.
Yeah. And I was just gonna say, any of you can jump in. This is a question for everyone.
Yeah, I think I probably split the here since kind of we've had the argument for low poly, and we've seen some really awesome stuff from Wilder World on the high poly end. And my view is that the metaverse isn't an application. It's like the collection of interoperable applications, games, experiences. And so if you're thinking about the metaverse as all of us here as opposed to a specific app, then there's room for everything, and you can tune your experience to the use case you're trying to deliver and the audience you're trying to reach. We have in the Futureverse a range of experiences from mobile apps that are kind of low poly, really easy to run on those devices, up to AAA quality experiences that have the high fidelity graphics. And what's really important is being able to provide an infrastructure underneath that enables interoperability of that content. And so when we think about the metaverse, we don't think about an app. We think about how can we connect all of the apps and make those applications interoperable, and importantly, make them interoperable with user-owned content and data. And so in that context, there is room for everything, and developers should be able to choose what kind of fidelity they want to deliver. I think the other thing to the point around creator economy and how we can enable users to to have the choice about how they create as well. AIGC's like solving a lot of those problems. I mean, the environments that I'm talking to you from now are all Unity environments that were generated by our AI, and so you can build high fidelity environments as an end user now using these next generation tools, whether that's avatars or pets or vehicles or environments. You can actually kind of now extend the abilities that were only available to professional creators to down into everyday users. And so that choice, what type of thing the user wants to experience can be more fluid than perhaps what it's been in the past, when a developer's had to kind of set all of that stuff up and do the hard work themselves.
Well, let me follow up with you, Aaron. So Futureverse has snagged arguably the largest IP rights out there to like Ready Player One for the metaverse. That's huge and freaking awesome. Congratulations.
No worries. And Parsifal's happy to be here today to see you all guys.
Look at that.
Let's go. How are you able to say anything about how you're planning to use this iconic IP to shape and enhance the metaverse experience? Obviously, attracting users with, let's say, the top metaverse IP is a pretty huge advantage.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what I was saying earlier. If you kind of think about the metaverse as the collection of all of us doing these things and trying to make them in interoperable ways, then you can use IP in lots of interesting ways too. And we've got a range of different experiences that we'll be leveraging the Ready Player IP for, from something like Open, which is our AAA, super high fidelity battle royale format game, down to surreal escapes, which are kind of the worlds that you're seeing in front of you now, where users can go in and generate their own content, which fills up a space that they're creating themselves using our AI generated tools, through to other mini games, applications, and experiences. It could be in Unity or on mobile or on web, and giving the flexibility to creators to be able to make those choices, whether the developers or end users, is kind of a core part of our mission. One big thing, though, that we think the Readyverse can be really powerful for in this space is providing a portal so that anyone who's creating those experiences can come in and launch their applications and experiences using this interoperable technology. And so, whether you're a builder, who's building in Unity or Unreal or on mobile or on web, you can have a home where users can discover those experiences and come in and enter through those seamless onboarding journeys, and with those underlying capabilities exposed into your application for interoperability. I mean, on the point of IP, I think like this is a really big part of our mission as well. Ready Player One is one of a dozen or so high quality, world popular movie IP and experiences that we're bringing to life in the next coming months, along with global sports teams and franchises and big brands. And so we're really trying to draw the dots between things that people already know and love, and the things that they can, new things that they can do with that IP in these immersive spaces.
Great answer. Thank you very much. I'm glad you could speak to that. Do you mind full screening the guy with the gigantic wide brim hat really quick, Frank? I wanted to go back to you. And Sebastian, we're going to get to you in just a minute, buddy. Frank.
I just want to make sure Sebastian can hear us. Sebastian, can you hear us? I don't think
Sebastian cannot hear us right now.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. I can hear you right.
You can.
Fine.
Oh, here we go.
Well, let me do an intro for Sebastian really quick.
Well, please do. We have to do an intro for Sebastian. We're gonna full screen him for that one.
Joining us from the Sandbox Metaverse, co-founder and COO of the Sandbox, Sebastian Bourget. Today is the 12th year anniversary of the Sandbox. 12 years. That's basically 1,000 in the Metaverse. Congratulations.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
It's been
happy to have you.
Amazing journey since we started Sandbox. Definitely. Yeah, and I'm screen sharing as well, playing. So if you can switch and show me more directly my screen share. Do you see it? Here?
So we are limited to
Not
7
yet. I have to
screens,
start
and I think
again.
we're taking all the screens. We're just happy you're here, Sebastian. If you're blurry, we're gonna take it. We're just happy you're here, and we're gonna throw you right in the question if you don't mind. But before, let me bring Frank Wilder back here because I think Andrew had a question for him.
Quick question for Frank, and then I want Sebastian to address this one. Frank, your metaverse captures that dream metaverse look, right? Hyper realistic, high fidelity, etc. But what you guys are doing is you're doing this extremely stylized look for your metaverse that's very Wilder, right? So have you guys discussed, like, do you pose a risk of turning off a lot of users that don't love that specific Wilder vibe? Or are you just like, let's double down on it and just get people that are just truly deeply in love with this look and then forget the rest? How are you thinking about that? Because you guys have this, you could have gone generic high fidelity metaverse, but you went very Wilder style. Can you help us understand that in terms of attracting new users?
Nice, yeah. I think this is an ongoing question, and ultimately, I think there's room for a lot of different genres and aesthetics. And yeah, our approach to this is really like using next gen tools, and that I think similar to it can be hard to look forward but easier to look backwards. So I think a good reference would be maybe like how streaming kind of disrupted film and and then series and all these types of things. So really for us, we're using all the next gen tools, and the belief there is that the compute will happen in the cloud. And yeah, we've actually recently done a partnership with NVIDIA using their GeForce Now network. So that would essentially allow folks to log in through the browser and play Wilder World on really any type of device. And it's more reliant on your internet connection opposed to your local compute.
Okay, got it. Okay, that makes sense. Mona, go ahead and hit Sebastian with a question here. Let's have him address the attracting new users topic.
Well, Sebastian, we were talking about when we initially started the conversation, we were talking about high fidelity versus low fidelity. And I want to ask you this because, and I want to be transparent with my audience, especially as a journalist. I am heavily invested in sand and mana, everyone, because, back in 2020, 2021, these were the metaverses. And so even for me, I loaded my bags with sand because I was hopeful that the visuals would improve along the way. But we know today that Sandbox's voxel style is practical for its UGC approach, user generated content approach. We know that Sandbox's approach is a self-publishing platform. But would you say that there are plans to amp up that realism for users that maybe prefer a more sophisticated graphic style and that realistic virtual environment?
Well, I think like you're really pointing out at the right thing. Like the core focus of Sandbox and our main mission is like how do we empower anyone to become a creator? And the best way to enable like massively people to become creator is like to lower the barrier to entry to content creation, to make it as simple as possible. Very often we compare voxel to like digital Legos. You don't need to read the user manual to start playing around with voxel. And yet it's at the same time that it is very simple and accessible representation that works both for gaming but for other industries such as music, sport, entertainment in the metaverse. It is very versatile, and it can also be used to create very advanced graphics. And that's one thing that people might not realize, but Sandbox and many other games like Minecraft, once you apply shaders and you apply a lot of other visual effects, much more realistic and aesthetic. And how it looks like today, it's like big cubes like Minecraft 15 years ago. It's actually dense, and it's already 2 years ago. So we're making it much more beautiful. We are adding a lot of like juice, visual effects, smokes, lighting effects, and many different things that contribute to our like creating very immersive scenes, while at the same time retaining the simplicity and the accessibility of our design. And the result is that we already have over 1,000 experiences within a couple of months that are live, made by the creator. We publish hundreds of events with top tier brands that are produced in like record time. Like we're talking a matter of weeks to months to produce high quality games and experiences with top tier brands, whereas it should be a matter of years. And that's one reality as well. The more like photorealistic AAA graphic you want to go, there is a cost to that. There is a cost in performance, in memory, in content production. And so there is a financial cost, and there is a higher barrier to entry to like who can be a creator, because the people who can create that kind of content, they require like more training, specific skills, complex software. So the onboarding is not impossible, it's just like more selective, and it's not in phase with our vision of like anyone, no matter their background, could become a first-time creator in the metaverse and start monetizing those new skills that they discover. And we're creating a virtual world that is inclusive and accessible to new talent, no matter where they are in the world. And I think that Sandbox has really achieved that today. And that goes to your question on like, how are we onboarding people to the metaverse? We're onboarding people first with all the major brands from all part of the world. There's more than 400 top tier brands, from Ubisoft, Atari, The Walking Dead, Snoop Dogg, Steve Aoki, Paris Hilton, Blondish, The Rabbits. I can keep counting them, that are launching fun social gamified experiences on the Sandbox that reward users both in sand or with other form of digital assets. We're opening co-creation with those brands by organizing game jam and video game, which at various contests like video game competition that are time limited. This year, I think we'll be close to 50 game jams, all with over 1 million cents on prize distributed between local one in certain countries or global one available to everyone online. And those are contributing to attracting a lot of creators who are producing those experiences, publishing them, and driving even more audiences. And ultimately, the third thing that Sandbox does great, that is contributing to attract new users, like instead of saying like, oh, we're going to focus massively on the US first, like Fortnite or Roblox and other games I've done, and once we've reached, I don't know, 90% of the US market, we'll start to think about localization and the rest of the world. We went straight ahead into Asia first, to the MENA region, to Turkey, and that results in that more than 30% of our audience is Asia-based. Korea, Hong Kong, China, Japan are leading the charge in terms of like content, users, brands, partners, and all of that is very exciting because those are actually the reality of where the users are today, and where crypto adoption, Web3 adoption, and metaverse adoption from both brands and creators is happening. It's not happening that much on the Western side, Europe or US, as we would have. Actually, being an entrepreneur for 16 years myself, I've come from mobile gaming. Typically, we were all focused on US market and then trying to go to China, Korea, and Japan as the top 5 gaming markets.
Well,
This is way different today.
Yeah, and I want to go a little bit more in depth with you on these topics, but I actually want to bring up simplifying onboarding. You touched on onboarding. So let's go ahead and jump into our second challenge, which is simplifying onboarding. Now, guys, this challenge is going to focus on streamlining accessibility and transactions. Sebastian was talking about accessibility, but we're also going to touch on transactions here. I think we all agree today in Web3 environment, stepping into the metaverse is a bit of a hassle. We have complex setups, connecting your wallet to device compatibility, not to mention sometimes lack of tutorials, and we have pre-launch products that are a bit confusing. So in this challenge, we're going to talk about your strategy in simplifying entry points and making the metaverse more accessible and user friendly for everyone to jump in. And I want to actually use one of my personal experiences on one of your platforms to kick off this conversation. Take a look. I think Frank is back in here. Let me make sure Sebastian, I think Sebastian got booted. But guys, you just watched my very first digital birthday experience in DCL. Isn't that cool that I got to?
Let's
Super
go.
cool.
Love it.
I get to share that with my good friend and DCL community educator, Odd Job, our brilliant experience creator, Tank Poco, who is streaming this right now from her nightclub, Dollhouse, created that entire experience. And DCL's talented designers like Isa and Doki created custom wearables and emotes for us. I am serious when I tell you it was an experience I will remember for the rest of my life. And I hope that millions and millions of people will one day have the chance to experience their first digital birthday just like I did. However, we did have some challenges. And Yamal, I want to bring these challenges to you because the first challenge that we experienced, let me just bring, bear with me here. I'm just trying to bring Sebastian back. The first challenge that I specifically had was in transactions. I've been wanting to purchase 5 of the same emotes that Isa created for us to support her work. I opted for the simplest method, which was using my credit card. I've been having trouble getting that transaction confirmed. And to be honest with you, the crypto transaction in Decentraland has been a deterrent for me because of that blockchain bridging that's required. Will you talk to us about how can Decentraland improve transaction processes so they're easy, smooth, and successful for everyone all the time?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm super glad to hear that you have an amazing birthday party in Decentraland. Oh, can you hear
Sorry.
me? Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I was trying to give me a second here. I was trying to bring Sebastian. Sorry, guys. We were having technical difficulty here. Okay, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm super glad to hear that you have an amazing experience during the party, and I'm so sorry that you have these issues during the purchase operation in the marketplace.
It's okay.
I also want to take the opportunity to say hi to everyone who is watching this on the Central as well. Um, so we have been working pretty hard on the past months in lowering the different entry barriers, both for Web 2 and Web 3. In particular, in Web3, you now in the marketplace, you can purchase any wearable and emote using any token from any chain. So we support cross-chain payments. So if you have a stable coin in Binance chain, you can buy a wearable even though it's minted on Polygon chain. I think that's pretty helpful. We should check if that applies to all the wearables. Maybe if it's a free wearable and you need to pay mana, the basic fee that is on the chain, maybe that doesn't work as expected. But overall, we want to remove this barrier of where do you have your tokens and which tokens are allowed. So cross-chain payments is one of the tactics we're following to reduce that entry barrier. The other thing, of course, credit cards that we have a tap into the different credit card providers. and there are more big companies getting to the space. Looking forward to check other providers that provide a more smooth experience while purchasing. For example, Stripe has a division in crypto, and they are willing to work with other companies. So, getting a better on ramp for fiat payments, that's another strategy. Also, we have integrated social login a few months ago, and I think that's the bigger strategy for Web2 users. We believe that Web3 in the backend is awesome because you have all the power of the blockchain to secure your assets for your digital identity. However, for a newcomer to the space, it's daunting to require having a wallet to connect. So nowadays, you can create you can access Decentraland with a social account with just Gmail or a Microsoft or Discord or an X, also known as Twitter. And behind the scenes, a wallet is created so you can own the assets, you can receive a gift. You are a first class citizen with all the power of blockchain behind, but the ease of use of your regular email account and password. So I think those are the different steps we're taking to reduce these frictions and reduce the entries of barrier. Yeah, again, I'm sorry that you have
I
some
think that's
issues during the process, but I think that's the way forward.
I think
Yeah,
that's in like
Aaron, go
something
ahead.
that's yeah that I mean I think a lot of those memes are starting to disappear in terms of the usability side of Web3. If you recently been following what we've been doing with Reebok, you can jump in and start to create your first metaverse piece of content in Instagram, with no other requirements other than to chat to our AI bot. You submit a piece of content, a photo, a memory that you love, that our AI tools turn that into a wearable sneaker that then you can go and use inside of the different applications and experiences, or even in Roblox or Fortnite. And so having those smoother onboarding journeys has been a big kind of mission, I think, for Futureverse. But we're starting to see that happen across lots of experiences in Web3 now, where you, as you mentioned, you can have a social login. That you can go through that whole process, and we've had grandmas do it who've never touched Web3 before. Go in, interact with the AI on Instagram, create a digital sneaker, create a Web3 wallet in the process, buy that thing with their credit card, and send it to a loved one without having to think about Web3 at all. And if you can start to see that type of thing scaling across all of the builders who are trying to make this space better, I think that meme of usability will start to disappear in terms of the friction in that user experience. It's certainly something we've been super focused on, and you can go and try that now by hitting up Reebok Impact on Instagram and see the process for yourself, how slick a Web3 experience can be.
Yeah, Aaron, I thank you. Actually, I wanted to ask you to touch on the Reebok collaboration, because the Reebok collaboration is exactly that,
Yeah.
ease of accessibility. But I also can you quickly also mention, because we were talking about transactions, you guys have a few partnerships with payment protocols. You have Centrapay, and you have Immersive with MasterCard.
Yeah.
How does that play a part into your seamless transactions? Are those partnerships important?
No, really important. I think two things we've really done in terms of that transaction flow. So the Root network, when we looked at that onboarding journey, typical onboarding journey for users coming into Web3, that friction point of being able to make your first transaction had a couple of problems with it. One is the kind of account creation, which we solved with Future Pass. So you can come on board, create your wallet without having to think about anything other than your social accounts or your email address or whatever. Then the next step is like, how do you transact? And most times, when you go through that process, you have to learn about gas, for example. And so what we wanted to do was try and abstract that for users. So Root Network has this thing called the Any Token Gas Economy. You can come in, pay with the native token of the experience or game or application that you're already engaged with, and the network will automatically convert that to gas. Or as a developer, you can use the same system for delegated gas, so you can pay gas on behalf of your users. The people who are minting those shoes with their credit card is using that delegated system, so the fiat transaction is then being converted to a native crypto transaction, and the gas is being paid on behalf of the user. So, simplifying that onboarding process has been really important, and I think a key part of the ongoing adoption and transaction side of things is integration with popular payment systems. So you mentioned MasterCard, Immersive as a Futureverse company. Now, one of the companies at the forefront of merging traditional financial rails and Web3 rails. And so you can power up your Immersive MasterCard directly from your Web3 wallet without an exchange in the middle or a bank in the middle, and spend that crypto. I go out regularly in New Zealand here with my Immersive card on my iPhone and my Apple Wallet and spend it at a point of sale, just like I would with a regular bank account. And so again, those barriers to adoption are starting to disappear and the friction's reducing. CentraPay is another really great one. CentraPay is integrated to almost all of the world's popular point of sale systems. So Ingenico, Verifone, PayPal, the things that are at your local dairy or down at your local pizza store, they have a native ability to transact with Web3 wallets and not have to change anything in their own setup and their own transaction process. So that they can start to interface with users who are using those new money rails in a more seamless way without having to think about what's going on behind the scenes. So all of this technology is really coming together. And I think, across the space, Web3 space in general, over the last 12 months, there's been huge strides made in user experience improvements. And we can only see that accelerating, I think.
That's all good news.
Amazing.
It sounds like it's going to be making things a lot easier for users. Let's kick it over to Frank. I want to know, Frank, in Wilder World, you've got those unique cars, those avatars, land, kind of accessories at a high standard, but they are going to come at a relatively high cost for, by normal gaming standards. Given the challenge of streamlining accessibility and transactions, kind of what strategies are you thinking about implementing to lower the barrier to entry to Wilder World, making it easier to and more affordable for the average user to engage and invest in your metaverse without feeling like they're priced out? Like, for example, right now, if you're going to go buy, a Trinity in Wilder World, you could be blowing hundreds of bucks, US dollars, on something like that. For an average gamer, that's an extremely high cost. So how are you guys thinking about that? Because you guys need, arguably, you'd want to onboard millions of users to your metaverse. Hundreds of bucks, that's a pretty big barrier. Can you help me understand how you're thinking through that, Frank?
Yeah, I think in terms of the payment stuff, I feel like there's a lot of good rails being built, and ultimately meeting people where they're at is what's going to win, and all roads will lead there. And, people are used to using standard login, their credit cards, all these types of things. So that's not to say you're offering the blockchain kind of base and protocols and that foundation isn't what to do, but I think there's a lot of interesting things with, account abstraction and all these sorts of things. So from the onboarding perspective, we're really thinking about, meeting people where they're at. So I think distribution is a key part of that. We're currently on the Epic Games Store. I think we're in the top 25 most wish-listed game globally. So I think, again, going to where people who are used to playing games are at. In addition to that, we're working with Samsung as well. So we recently announced something with them, which would through what I mentioned before, using the pixel streaming, allow Wilder World to be accessed through their smart TVs. So that's a part of their strategy, is kind of disrupting the console, because a lot of things, again, will move to the cloud. So, but on the Trinity bit, I ultimately don't think everyone in the metaverse will be owners, and I don't think that should be a barrier to entry. So the way we're thinking about it is, there's assets you can own, and then that shouldn't stop a player from wanting to enter Wilder World and use a car and all those types of things. So, I and another big lesson has been, like, in practice versus theory. I think it's easy to act in the realm of theory when you're kind of dreaming up a crazy idea, but once you practically get into building something and testing things and seeing, like, the path is revealed. So I think for us, we're currently in that process. And specifically to the cars, what we're working on implementing next would be, like, if you own the NFT, there's some type of indicator badge which says you own that. But other players would still be able to come in, create a car, use the garage, and drive around. So my sense is it will be something along those lines, and but the principle being that not having that be the barrier to entry, like just treating it kind of like a normal game, in that sense. And I think, there's a very high standard as well. So in terms of how we're approaching building, I think in Web3, it seems like the high quality AAA thing it's like, it's a large investment, or but look at all the best performing pieces of entertainment and IP, like they're big productions and they're being built as such. So I think those things will kind of cross, and we'll start to see a lot of really high quality productions using kind of blockchain under the hood. And there will be different types of people who want to participate in those experiences. And I really see that as, like, there's owners, there's creators, and there's players, and they all kind of have a different optimization and way which they can engage with the world. So, but I don't necessarily see it a thing being of quality being a barrier to entry. It's just designing it as such.
Makes sense. Thank you for separating the idea of gamers and owners. Go ahead, Mona.
First of all, I just wanted our viewers to take a look at Frank. Guys, this is not Frank. This is Frank's avatar. It is so realistic. It's tripping me out. I love it. I just wanted to point that out one more time. But I mean, you bring up a good point. We're all business owners. You have to do it. And as you're building it, there's redirecting and rebuilding. But you brought up the cars. And Aaron, I want to ask you, I want to share this experience with you that I had. I got my Future Pass. Amazing experience. My experience with your UI was very seamless. And I also have to tell you that Miss Gex and Bildo and their weekly X spaces has helped me tremendously and do the hand holding for me and the questions that I've had in this process. So shout out to Miss Gex and Bildo.
She's a dope community member. Love her.
Yes, she is. But I wanted to share this experience with you. Once I was ready to jump in, I wanted to do the racing game because I love racing. But I have to be honest, the complexity of building a car, speaking of cars, was a little bit, and putting the components together felt a little overwhelming for me. I just wanted to jump in and race. Can Futureverse simplify this process, especially for mainstream users, and offer maybe a pre-designed car package that you just click and you buy it?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. So the races game is a kart style racing game, which is powered by our altered state machine AI protocol. So the drivers of the cars are AIs. They're tradable brains or intelligence that you can kind of put inside of a car. And the car itself is built using our swappables technology. So you can create your own car. And all the components of the car are individual NFTs, which you can then trade as well. And so the style of game is really a strategy game where you're trying to optimize the best parts of the car with the best driver on a particular track race against a particular group of competitors. So it is a very strategy driven experience. Your point about having a default car to onboard users is something the team's already looking at, as well as a couple of other improvements in terms of going to that next stage for reaching out past the initial community for adoption. The other things include bringing in other avatars and collectibles into the game from across our ecosystem. You've seen me today sporting a few different collections that are compatible across the Futureverse ecosystem. This 8 in particular is one that we previewed a month or so ago as part of our Unleashed Apes collection, which brings our own natively created Bored Apes with the swappables technology that exists in those cars, so that you can change and swap the accessories or even potentially traits and morph those things. So really trying to expand the base of players, simplify that journey for a new user. And I think having a default cart for someone to start with is a really good idea to help further that.
I think it would definitely simplify the process for the mainstream, because everybody just wants to race first and then upgrade their cars, right, guys?
Totally. Looks like Sebastian is in the metaverse now. Freaking awesome. Thank you, Sebastian. I want to ask you about understanding I understand the appeal of sandboxes, the massive menu of user-generated experiences, right? There's endless possibilities in the sandbox. However, as a marketer, I know that when you offer someone too many choices, it actually statistically decreases their probability they will try or that they will buy. So how can you in the sandbox simplify onboarding into the sandbox when the menu of options or the metaverse experiences, the number of choices may be overwhelming for new users? Is Sebastian's camera feed still going? And
Let me see. Sebastian, can you hear? Actually, sorry, Sebastian, can you hear us?
Yes. Yeah, I can
Okay,
hear
go ahead,
you.
sir.
Do you hear me? Yeah, okay, cool.
We hear
I
you.
need
gotcha.
Yep.
to have both. Perfect.
Yep.
So yeah, absolutely. There's a few things that to take into consideration when you look at Sandbox. Like we're just past the 5.8 million users, so we are one of definitely the decentralized application that drive the most user to be onboarded. You can create a wallet just with your email address without MetaMask, and we implemented both Polygon and anything that remove the need for gas fees, like with a gasless transaction and many things. So like basically anyone can transact directly with Sand in just one click, or require a wallet only at the last moment when they need to be doing transaction, which really facilitates the onboarding. Creating your avatar is free. Everything is free, actually. You don't need to purchase a land or any asset to start entering Sandbox. And so we have, on one side, a lot of user-generated content that offer a great diversity of things to do and to explore and to keep you engaged. And we have the top-tier brand experiences that can hook you first. What we saw in the past is, because Sandbox is still in alpha and we had mostly the alpha seasons for people to complete, it was limiting what people could do and how we could retain them after they completed for, let's say, 2 months or the season. Whereas right now, like there is always content to do. The users spend 60 minutes on average a day on Sandbox, and they explore like 3-5 experiences, and we keep suggesting them more content to keep exploring, to keep finding different things they can do with their identity and avatar. So that plays definitely a role. And the fact that Sandbox is a gamified platform that offers very different game mechanics, from parkour, platforming, tower defense, simulation game, socialization, virtual galleries, virtual concert, and more, provide a little bit of something for more tastes and for people to hook together, to hang out, to connect, to chat, to learn, to educate, to play, to give as well, so to contribute to positive impact causes, and to give out to charities through their actions. These are some of the many use cases found in Sandbox Metaverse. The quality of the onboarding is something that we need to constantly improve. Like, there is no perfect first-time user experience. Sandbox keeps improving. Now it's been years that we refine it. You create an avatar for free. We give you your first NFT for free via an instant giveaway, so you don't even need to claim it anymore. We try various strategies in collaboration with the brand or directly to think in a user-friendly way of like, what can we offer that is valuable both in terms of content, of user experience, and will drive more users into. And still, there will be more progress to be done. Overall, we already know it. The speed of loading, like now you can switch in less than 30 seconds from one experience to another. It's not as fast as browser-based, but it will become soon. We are not yet on mobile, so we know that's been a limiting factor as well. And next year it should definitely make things simpler in terms of viral factor for Sandbox and penetration in certain markets. But all of that is also taking time on the technological side to develop, and we're aware that's how things are progressing and getting better and better through little iteration.
Yep.
In 2021, our strategy of interoperability, like onboarding over 50 of the blue chip NFT collection, like Bored Ape, CyberKongs, Artifact with Clonex, and World of Women, and many others, was also a way to enable the NFT holder of those community to play around with new characters, that their NFT turn into 3D characters, gain new utility, and allow them to. We were one of the first to really showcase the benefit of interoperability and what people can do, and we keep developing that more and more. Right now,
Don't go,
you can see I can
Sebastian. Don't. Sorry to interrupt. Don't go into interoperability yet, because I am going to bring that up. But that looks so amazing. I mean, yes, we have come a long way. You're absolutely right with those graphics. I was really enjoying that. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm going to reset the room real quick. We're a little bit behind, and I want to make sure we meet our time that we promised you guys. Are you guys so far enjoying this roundtable? Let me hear those roaring from the chats, because I think you are. I mean, we have almost 1,000 viewers. I think we can get it to 1,000 viewers, guys. This is amazing. What an insightful conversation, guys. In the chats and viewers, don't forget our sponsor, Lizard Labs, is hosting a Metaverse Roundtable Spaces on X tomorrow with community members and team members from these metaverses. And we want to continue this conversation there tomorrow. Our mods, Miss Gex and Miss Teen Crypto, are going to drop the link to this audio spaces in the chat for you right now. So make sure you set your reminder for tomorrow. Come through and support the future of gaming. There's just no way we can do this without you guys. So if you're ready, let me take us into our third challenge. I think we're ready for it. The conversations are leading to it. This is going to be a big one, guys. Are you ready for this? Scaling the metaverse. Oh boy, here we go. Now, the focus for this challenge is scaling across platforms and the volume of users. This is a topic that we could go down rabbit holes, but we're going to do it justice. Now, founders, the metaverse right now is, as you know, dependent on PCs and high-end graphic cards, which is not ideal for everyone that wants to get in, right? So in this challenge, we're going to talk about your strategies on expanding through mobile, cloud computing, perhaps VR, and how you're going to handle the demands of millions of users transacting simultaneously. And I think I'm going to go back to my birthday example there, because Yamal, if you recall, I said I had 2 challenges that night. And I want to bring up the second challenge here. We had about, at our birthday party, we had about 60 to 70 guests. And by the way, the roof of Dollhouse was on fire. You saw in that clip. But unfortunately, not everyone could get in the club. We had people stuck outside of the club. They couldn't get in through their iPads. They couldn't get in through their PCs. We had some browser issues once we reached that 70 or so number. Yamal, I cried. My guests were crying. They were stuck outside of the club. Why weren't we able to scale the event? What was the issue? And AJ and I talk about this all the time. We want to have 500 guests next year. Will this be possible by next year?
Yeah, well, this is a really good timing to let you know that we have been working really, really hard in bringing a new Decentraland experience. There is a new client that will be launched later this year. And it's looking amazing. We're hosting a community summit next week in Buenos Aires, bringing a bunch of really active community members to get the first try of it. And yeah, it's looking promising. We have went through the aesthetics, revamping some of the points we mentioned earlier on the low fidelity, high fidelity, the networking. It's brand new. And yeah, so next year your birthday party is going to be on another level for sure.
That's
Um,
amazing. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so I think that's the yeah. We know that the current experience is not as good as we want, but there is something great coming up. And one of the decisions that we have to take there is also during rebuilding the client is to make it ready to expand to another platform. So launching first on desktop, but ready to go to other ones. That could be a console, like Xbox. That could be going to mobile and tablets. It could be VR. We haven't settled yet. We will announce that after we launch the first version. But it's totally in our roadmap to expand to another platform. And I think Frank mentioned something that is really accurate, met the users where they are, and being able to tap into the different stores and where the users and gamers download the different entertainment activities. I think that's the next milestone for us. Get ready the new version of Decentraland and put it in front of where users download the their games. Yeah, so for us, that's I think the strategy. I have a question like cloud computing for us. Like pixel streaming technology is something that we haven't considered really because I don't believe it's cost effective. At least unless you get the user to pay for it, you have to subsidize all the cost of that, and that really doesn't scale that well. Like when you have a big hit, I don't know, another pandemic, and yeah, you have a lot of users. How is that going to be sustainable? That's an open question, maybe.
I'd love to bring that over to Frank, actually, since he mentioned
Mhm.
earlier they were doing cloud-based computing services. Frank, obviously the graphical fidelity in Wilder World looks like it would even melt my liquid-cooled 4090 graphics card. So obviously high-end PC, clearly an addressable audience for you. You mentioned a moment ago going NVIDIA GeForce Now partnership. That'll get you like the low end PC market or mid end PC market unlocked there. And then you also mentioned the Samsung partnership, which unlocks TV. Of course, there's other areas of gaming like mobile and VR. So if you are opening up all of these additional platforms for people to play Wilder World, can you address what Yamel just brought up? Like, what if 1 million users come in? Are you going to have to blow like $100 million a month or something to do pixel streaming? Like, is this technology ready? Is this
He's
cloud-based gaming
gone.
service tech ready? He's gone. It's
It's
not
not-
ready.
it's
He
not
It is
ready.
ready.
I'm
Go
back.
back.
It was
is
the
ready.
form. I swear it was the form.
Case
They
in
sent
point.
the EMP to Miami.
Frank, is this cloud-based gaming? Is cloud-based gaming services to stream games ready for prime time? Yamel brought up the economics of it, and is it also ready to unlock, the growth platforms of gaming like mobile, for example? Can you address those items? Obviously, you guys have looked into it deeply. No, Frank.
I can probably jump in while he's having.
Yeah.
All right, hit us, Aaron. Hit us with it.
Yeah, hit us.
We've looked at it as well and done quite a bit of work with some of our partners like Tencent on this. And I think Frank's right in that eventually, you apply Moore's laws to this stuff. The cost of compute and cost of bandwidth will come down and make it more viable. Right now, per user, for an average game economy, it's not viable. And these guys, this is coming from someone like Tencent, who's probably the biggest gaming company in the world. If you look at like mobile game economics and stuff like that, it just wouldn't stack up for the mass audience. But it is being used quite successfully in the onboarding sort of journey. So you could start to see things like we're doing with the Gods and Goblins Grumble game, where people can start to participate in a game that is being streamed from the cloud as their first experience in a limited way, and then use that as a step to onboard them into a client-driven experience. So I think that's probably where we're at now from an economics perspective. It will get better, but I think probably the key overarching thing is the metaverse isn't about, in my mind, having everyone in one application. It's about making the things they love, their friends, their content, their assets, available and accessible in a wide range of applications. And so you don't have to necessarily solve the problem of scaling a particular environment or shard or application to get the metaverse itself to scale. If we can build applications that are compatible with each other and with the content that's being delivered underneath them, then the metaverse can exist everywhere at the same time. I can be on a mobile application like the FIFA AI League and use the same assets as I would in the Readyverse or in Open, and talk to my friends across both of those experiences and share value across both of those experiences. And so, meeting consumers where they are is about also making the content viable for multiple applications instead of trying to solve the metaverse in a single application. We're all, like I said earlier, we're all part of the metaverse here. And while streaming will play a role, I think, in scaling high fidelity experiences down to lower end devices, and the opposite will be happening as well. Lower end devices will be becoming better and better, and so they'll be meeting the graphics of high demand games and environments, and that will be part of it. But not trying to push everything into a single application means that the metaverse can scale if we think about the metaverse in terms of users, which is their content and their data and their friends and the things that they value, and really showing how we as Web3 can unlock that idea of open, because that's the thing that really differentiates Web3 from where we've seen in the past metaverse games and experiences in the mainstream. They are application focused because they're all about locking users into that one world of content and one economy. Whereas Web3 builders, the secret sauce we have is this idea of openness and portability. And if we drive towards that, then the metaverse really can scale, because my things, my identity, my social graph can work everywhere. And that's the thing that's really important for scaling, as opposed to trying to make every kind of user fit into a single type of application.
You bring up such a good point that I want to ask you while we're here, and then Andrew, you can go back to Frank since he's back. Aaron, you are describing the value of the metaverse, and a lot of people, I feel like there's a misconception that people think the value of metaverse is in its immersiveness, right? You have the license for what's arguably the coolest VR world out there, Ready Player One. Guys, this is the guy, Ready Player One Metaverse. This is the guy right here. But would you say, well, that's exactly, that's him. But would you say that we absolutely need VR headsets to get that full Ready Player One effect? Or is there a chance that you'll create a metaverse that doesn't need that and it'll be an iteration of the metaverse that doesn't require headsets?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really great question, and actually something we've had lots of good conversations with Ernie Klein, who created Ready Player One, and when Ernie thought about like what virtual, the virtual society and digital worlds of the future could look like, in his head, he was thinking about how you could include everything that mattered to society inside of those virtual environments. And this was before Web3 technology even existed. And in his knowledge of systems and technologies at that time, that all had to live inside, the Ready Player One, platform that was built. And when Web3 came along, he actually kind of saw the power of that to deliver what he really had in his mind. This is IP that was available to the, and chased down and hunted by some of the top technology and gaming companies in the world. And they decided to choose Futureverse to build this because they wanted to make it open. And openness is the power of the Web3 metaverse. I think a lot of what Web3 focused on initially was ownership. And ownership is a cool little trick that Web3 gives us. And it's an important one. But ownership without interoperability is meaningless. Like, I could own a dog that lives in my neighbor's garage, and that's kind of pointless if I can't get it out there and go for a run with it. And so if you can't give openness to your users, then ownership doesn't mean anything. And so when we think about things in that context, then you have to build solutions for enabling users to take their shit to different things, including VR, including awesome high fidelity experiences like what Wilder World's building, including low poly experiences like what Sandbox and Decentraland are building. And that's a really hard problem to solve for, because everyone here knows that creating content is super difficult and generally specialized per device and per engine and per application. And so, that's why we pulled the 250 odd people together in Futureverse to create the underlying systems and standards and tools to make it possible to do these things. And I think a big part of that is this generative AI. And I'll do a tweet after this actually and show how we're taking a single asset and making it feel like it can fit into lots of different types of worlds and environments. And so the user really just carries data with them between these different things, and the worlds interpret those data using generative AI tools to create an experience that's specific to those worlds. So it does feel like you're part of one big metaverse wherever you go, and those applications can feel free to interpret that data in the style and in the context and the fidelity that they want to give to their users. And that's really the only way the metaverse can win. We can't win by trying to fit everything into one box. Web3 wins by giving meaning to ownership through openness and interoperability.
Makes sense. Sebastian, I want you to jump in here in just a minute. Frank, we're going to see if we can address this question. Wilder World, it's melting our 4090s. That's why you've done the partnership.
Unfortunately, a bandwidth issue. Yeah,
I know it's a bandwidth issue. I'm just messing with you.
Yeah.
You've done the partnership with NVIDIA GeForce Now. It's unlocking low, mid, and high-end PCs, right, for Wilder World.
Yep.
Check. Doing the partnership with Samsung, that's unlocking TVs. Check. It was brought up earlier. There's a concern with game streaming. Is it economic if you're going at scale to millions of users? And I got the question of, is game streaming going to be viable for the growth sectors in gaming, which are mobile and VR? So can you help us understand how you're thinking through game streaming and how that can scale metaverses to more users?
Yeah, I came in right as Aaron was finishing his point on this, and I tend to agree with what he was saying. As costs will go down as we progress, and the compute becomes more readily available and more of a path to really running systems in the cloud. And I think, yeah, you can also have different layers to the experience where you might not need as much compute, for example, like social experiences and things like this. So, you don't need as many animations and all these sorts of things, or maybe game mechanics. So, from a compute perspective, there's actually less compute required. And then I think, yeah, I also agree around really addressing the journey of the player, and then at what point does it make sense for them to maybe download an executable or what it may be. So what NVIDIA does is they offer a certain amount of hours free per month, and then so that's their model. And I think something along those lines would be the thing to build internally. Really, as we scale, though, I think right now there's a lot of like these challenges are everyone's problems. And I think at one point in the early 2000s, like, yeah, the idea of the cloud and having everything live in the cloud seemed insane. And then, now sure enough, it's very commonplace. So I think as we move forward, that will become more the standard for our experiences, just like it has with MP3s, movies, all these other types of things. Why would you need to store things locally if you're not required to? So, yeah. And then in terms of actually scaling the player base in a single environment, that's also everyone's challenge currently. And yeah, there's a lot of cool solutions out there and a lot of, smart people working on this problem. We've been working closely with Metagravity on the concurrency problem. And yeah, the even, the biggest, best games can only get 50 to 100 people in a game instance currently. So I think we will get there. And yeah, we've done a lot of good experiments. It's still rough around the edges with
I think
getting
that's
high
even a meme
concurrency,
for
but
gaming, isn't it? Isn't it, Frank? Like the idea that, like in a game format, that you would want like tens of thousands of users at the same time seems like highly hectic and chaotic for a good game experience. I think for like social oriented experiences, it makes sense, but seems to be an unhealthy obsession in the broader metaverse community with concurrency, when I think in many situations it doesn't matter.
yeah, it's tough. Like I
Or
think,
it might be even like detrimental to the experience. I was watching some of the stuff that was happening with the other side, and it was looking great, but then you just kind of saw that, as a user looking at that every day, all day, with this kind of mess of like things happening everywhere and going everywhere. It'd be like, living in the middle of the busiest mall in the world. You just wouldn't want to do that. Yeah, sure, you might want to do it every now and then when it was fun at a concert or something like that. But the fact that was like your core game loop, I think would be hectic.
yeah, I think it's less for the game loop, but I do think like, yeah, the reason we've decided to build a city specifically is like it's something very tangible that people understand. I think these
Mm,
concepts can get very abstract. So for us initially, it's like we're building Miami. It becomes very clear. It paints a picture of I'm in a city, there's people around, I can do
mm.
things, I can drive, I can. So we're kind of more looking at it from that perspective. And I think, yeah, in addition to
And
what
that's
you said
and that's
about,
cool. And I guess that's a similar argument. Like if I live in the city now, I spend like
I live in
most
nature, so the metaverse
yeah,
is going to be
exactly.
my city. That's
And I
kind of
spend half my
yeah.
time at my beach house as well, and so I think like the general population likes to be in small spaces with small groups of people most of the time, and then occasionally go out and like be amongst the crowd.
Yeah, I
You
think
know,
that's what's changed. Like, yeah, I actually prefer to live not in the city. And yeah, we went to
yeah,
New York City recently and was like, holy shit, this is like I haven't seen this many. But I think that's a part of the offering for the metaverse is it can bring people together in that way of however you want to experience it at whatever level of frequency, it's
yeah,
kind of there and you can enter into that experience and you
yeah,
can be remote. So and then I think in addition to that, yeah, it's more about solving the core mechanics. It's a very interesting use case from our perspective. Um, all the mechanics of governance and economy and entertainment, all these kind of things wrapped in a package of something that is like so inherently close to what we know as society. I think that's kind of been so Wilder World is kind of that use case for us, and yeah, I think it's definitely a work in progress, and I think really in the near term, the way we're thinking about it is having this kind of like the city as a bootloader and having limited functionality and then
mm,
going to
mm,
places on the map where you
mm,
might engage in a race or
yeah,
you have a game mode we're working on called the breach, so you'd kind of travel to specific and then you can make interesting use of servers and things like that, but
yeah.
yeah,
I'd love to give
all
Sebastian a
interesting challenges.
to pipe in here.
Cool.
Really quick, Sebastian, the congrats on the sandbox approaching 300 user generated experiences, might be more or so. We have not mentioned the word AI 5,000 times, guys, in this conversation. We did not take a cue from Google. What was wrong with us? So let me start
We
mentioning it.
failed our quota.
We
I
failed
feel
our
like
AI
I've mentioned
quota.
it 5,000 times.
So let me say it a
Aaron
few
did.
times here.
Aaron did.
Okay. In the age of AI, the algorithms are now going to give us more views. There are two camps of thought on scaling user-generated content, Sebastian. Like, Camp A, which is AI as a tool for creators that makes their content tasks easier, like a farmer using a scythe on the fields, right? Then Camp B is saying that AI is a technology that replaces human tasks entirely, like tractors replacing all of the workers on a farm. So how do you view the role of AI in scaling up user-generated content in the sandbox?
That's a good question. Let me see if he is. Actually, Sebastian, we can't hear you. 1 second.
Okay, if we can't get Sebastian's feedback on that, I'd love to know Yamel's thoughts on that. Whether you view AI as this tool to make tasks
Yeah.
easier for user-generated or a tool that replaces a lot of user-generated. Go ahead.
No, I believe it's empowering creators. We have seen how technology is making individuals more powerful. At the maybe for having your own communication channel, you need to own a company, have a big stage, have people working for you, and now you can be a streamer and have a huge audience, and you can do it by your own on your house. I think technology is empower individuals. AI is just another wave on this, a super powerful one, but it goes in the same trend. Um, it can help you on drafting a narrative. It can help you in drafting the dialogue, proofreading them, or internet translating your experience in so many languages. Um, we're also very interested in the 3D modeling AI software. It's not quite there yet, at least for the low poly aesthetics that we are looking for. But things
We
is
can help you
moving
with that
super
if you
fast.
want to take a look at ours.
Which one?
Futureverse.
Feature.
There's some of the
Yeah,
best
totally.
3D AI scientists in the world working with us, and I think you'll be surprised how good it can be now.
Boom. They just
Amazing, yeah.
announced their collaboration and partnership right now, and they just inked the deal. Done.
Yeah,
Business
but this
deals
is
do happen on live stream.
When
yeah. Well,
spaces.
I attended to GDC recently, the Game Developer Conference, and I saw so many AI startups providing services to gaming companies in asset modeling, in texture generation. But at the end, I don't believe we are replacing creators at all. We are empowering individuals, and if you are a 3D modeler and you don't have the coding skills, now you have your AI partner that can cross the chasm, you know. And on the other way around as well, if you're a coder and you don't have the skills for doing 3D modeling or making your textures, that's something that you can always tap on onto AI. So yeah.
Decentralverse is launching tomorrow. That's awesome. Sebastian, now that you're here, I would love for you to address this question. Since you guys are all user-generated content, how is AI that tool to make tasks easier, or is it that replacer? And how do you view that with user-generated content and Sandbox?
I don't think we've reached a point yet that AI can replace. Right now, it's a very fast evolving technology that supports the creativity and onboarding of more creators. And like a tool, like the more you use it and you get better at it, and you train it, the better the quality of the result can be. And so typically in Sandbox, AI is already being used for like helping for the creator to come up much faster with concepts on the creative design side, with mood boards, to put together some 2D and 3D ideas that usually took them like days, sometimes weeks. Now comes up in matter of seconds. They are also able to use AI for capturing like movement from human body from a single smartphone camera feed and turn it into like an avatar animation and emotes to give more life and realism to our avatar. We'll use it for a lot of other aspects, from like reducing toxicity, in-game moderation, so we can all enjoy safe experience as players in the metaverse. 2D generation is very efficient so far and has progressed tremendously. 3D is, we're confronted to the same issue actually as Decentraland, like globally, and Voxel, specifically Voxel style of Sandbox is a very specific niche of design, and AI doesn't handle it well at the moment. But we tested a lot of companies, some of the best on the market, to deliver on it, and we're constantly amazed month after month of some progress they are doing. So as soon as ready, we will be happy to put it in the hands of millions of creators. AI is also great for like music, sound, and ambient generation, so adding to the immersion for facilitating the life of creators. And AI seems to be good at also like giving life to characters, specifically NPCs. But actually, there is also again a question here of like, what's the cost equation of that? Like, how does like more lively NPCs with AI turn into higher retention and engagement of user versus the cost that they represent for every single interaction, even if a single cent per interaction times millions start to become very significant cost. So we're really keen. I think it's something that will keep evolving, and we should monitor, test, do a lot of R&D, like procedural generation of lands, landscape. Just typing to bring your ideas to life is something that's very appealing and pushing towards our mission of like empowering anyone to become a creator. Not now, you don't just need to drag and drop, you just prompt to get content in front of you, viable content. People are able to spawn games from templates, and like using AI just replace a couple of assets to create variation of them. So populating lands much faster is also doable thanks to AI. So it's very like it's hold a lot of promises. The counterpart is like who the ownership, the copyright ownership, the authorship, and that's why blockchain is an essential part. You really want to track who is the original creators, who belongs the copyright to from a creation, and how do you bring back the royalties to those original creators. Something that in right now in the Web2 world is like the Wild West, and like data is being pulled from user data without their consent, stealing from artists, etc. So it's a real concern. I think a few things that were mentioned before as well. I couldn't really talk by then, but like right now, multiplayer, it's not just a matter of like Moore's law and like the availability of computing power and the decrease of cost. Like it's an n square problem. And the more you do realistic gaming, the more complex it gets. As a player, you're interacting with not only other players, but also with a lot of objects, interactive objects within a scene. So you might want to, there's many strategies to reduce that. Sharding, LOD, not only taking into account what's on display on the screen, etc., to reduce the number of objects that you compute interaction with. But just imagining the fact that if I have n players and a platform, and as soon as one of them move on the platform, the n-1 players need to know or be aware that that player is on the platform, so they cannot go on themselves and transfer that amount of information in a matter of 20 milliseconds to all the other players. It's also a constraint of bandwidth, on like how much information, even very well compressed, we can pack. And we can try to use deterministic approach, rendering on the client instead of computing on the server. But then it raises question of anti-cheat. Are we sure that the players' inputs are accurate? And like, so it's more complex than that. And streaming is also very complex. Actually, that's why Google probably gave up. It does, but like the cost of it's a matter of several dollars per hour per user. So it just doesn't make sense. I don't know any service that can bill their users such a high price for them to access, and that's why services like Stadia from Google and other actually like had to shut down because like high poly and bandwidth. So you have to do object streaming instead of full pixel streaming to make it much more like light in the data that's being transferred and optimized. Also, the latency, it works great maybe with 5G and 6G networks and fiber optics, but most of the normal connection doesn't allow like a good speed of interaction between the inputs of the player and the reactivity of the rendering from the streaming, which like creates, imagine jumping platform to platform with over a 200 millisecond latency on the rendering. It's impossible. Simple as that. So it can work for social interaction where avatars just go through, no interaction between objects, no gamification rules. Yes, you can render thousands of people at the same time, and that can work in certain cases. But for gaming, actually, the best games, they tend to reduce the number of players down to 8, 10 now to ensure the best performance for fewer users and rather than blasting too many. The highest I've seen today is 200. So just to put things like might not be today that we have a massive upgrade there.
And this is such an amazing topic, and I think it is part of that scalability that we were talking about. And I would love to do a second round with you guys so we can talk about scalability once again. It's such a deep conversation, but we're running out of time here, and I have one more challenge for you guys, and we can go around the table here and just address it really quickly. And this last one is keeping users around. We've been alluding to this, but I want to bring this back up as a challenge and focus it on fiction and reality, from fiction to reality. And I know someone here who likes to use that term. Maybe people in the audience know who that is. But in the history of, and what I want to pose here is, in the history of good games, the most successful gaming experiences, guys, have blurred the lines between digital and physical social interactions. In World of Warcraft, for example, the guilds, cosplay, and the events, they've created this deep social bond between WoW players over the last 20 years. People like Andrew Wall over here, they have literally missed their own child's birth because they were playing video games.
Whoa.
Worst father ever.
Well, no, I'm just kidding, but it's true. This is true.
This did
How
really happen in real life. There was a guy that missed his own child's birth because of World of Warcraft. Please continue.
This is a true story. I want to pose this to all of you, and whoever is inspired, chime in first. This is our last challenge. How do you guys think your metaverse is going to enhance real life experiences through its fictional universe? And how does it transfer the value that's created in that virtual or fictional universe back into the real world? Who wants to take that first? I know it's a little deep.
Yamel
I mean,
does.
I think generically
I'll jump
the
in after.
metaverse is the world we live in reality. Like the average human here is going to spend 40 something years of their life looking at a screen, and so the notion that the metaverse is something separate to the society we live in, I think, is probably incorrect. We are in the metaverse. The digital society and the physical society are the same society. You can't take digital out of our society, it would collapse. The digital economy and the physical economy are the same economy. You can't take the digital out, it would collapse. And so I think for a starting point, like the idea of the metaverse being separate to society isn't great framing, because we are in this hybrid society already. And I think one of the cool things you see probably across all these communities already is that link showing up in the same kinds of things that you talked about with World of Warcraft. I don't want to even look at my /played on World of Warcraft and the number of actual years of my life I've spent in there. But I think you see that playing out at events and meetups and guilds within the communities that we all have, that people are creating social bonds and social connections with each other. They are getting into the cosplay side of things sometimes. They're organizing their own meetups. We've got people in the Atom Car Club building and racing real cars. And so this idea of Web3 and communities and driving the metaverse, I think, delivers on that promise already of bringing some joy back from these virtual experiences into real life relationships and communities.
Thank you for that, Yamal.
Yeah, in my experience, or based on what I have witnessed in Decentran, is that even though it may start as a fiction, like this is my new identity, my new avatar, as soon as you start making real connections and making friends, that's totally real. And for sure, the this user generated platform that is super wild. There are so many parts that you can get involved to. Like you can be a world creator or an emote creator, or you can create your own pub or club in the Decentraland, or you can get into the governance and the DAO and proposing and trying to steer the future of the platform. In any of those points, if you find some friction, like an unbaked tutorial, there is a community for you to help you. And I think that's part of the beauty of Decentraland, that is an active community there that is looking forward, and it's one of the most welcoming communities out there. Super proud to be part of this one. And I think that that's become real. The friendship, the relationship, and that's it has a real impact on human lives. And that also goes to in real life meetups. When we went to GDC, some folks from the communities drove for 8 hours from Los Angeles to San Francisco to meet us. And next week, another 50 people from different parts of the world. We have representation from the States, from Japan, from Germany, and they're like flying to Buenos Aires to meet us as well. So I think that's a real impact, and we can see these meetups popping up all around the world, and those friendships, yeah, had a lasting impact on our community.
Beautiful. Thank you, Frank.
I do
I-
agree that like we connect in
Yeah.
virtual. Sorry.
Oh, no, you go,
ahead.
Sebastian. It's all good.
Go ahead,
we-
Sebastian.
we-
You got it.
Okay, all right. So thank you. I definitely agree that we get the chance to like connect in virtual world, and that often like also link back to a physical world. So what happens is like it doesn't really matter like where physical or virtual, they are both part of our reality now. Like it's widely accepted. In the same way that now meeting someone online, dating, finding love, getting married, and like where and how you connected to that person initially, it doesn't really matter anymore as it used to be like 20 years ago. And we're just creating those connections. We're creating memories and moments together that we cherish, that speak to us and uh, reflect back on us. The opportunity of the metaverse and what we are all building together on this roundtable, I believe, is also to create new forms of entertainment. Like the technology allows us to develop new ways to interact in the way we are using body expression with emotes, in the way that we're like designing mechanics that drive us to play again, to explore one more world, to complete quests, to I don't know, come back for some rendezvous and discover new IPs or new content to be released, etc. So I believe it's still very unique, and we can be quite creative in like inventing those new formats in the same way that other side is creating something in wider world is doing something. Decentraland has been leading originally the concept of like virtual DJ party and art galleries, crypto voxels, and so on. Like we every step by step we iterate and we progress over it. And
Yep.
I think this is but well, ultimately uh, we have a chance using the fact that we're all 3D virtual world to use the spatial environment to mobilize more senses and more meaningful connection interaction than just the 2D chats and the 2D internet. Because let's face it, everything we do on mobile, from our social media apps, social media in general, it's very flat. And it only allows mostly textual interaction at the moment, and we can do much better.
Thank you so much, Frank.
Awesome.
Take us out, Frank.
Yeah, great being here with everyone. For me, I really think, yeah, we could sit all day and talk about tech and protocols and innovation, but ultimately it all comes back to story and connection. And I think the opportunity now is really like to tell new stories, often with new mediums and new things coming online. We need new stories to make meaning of the world. And I think we've seen that with a lot of, let's say, generational defining stories, like Star Wars is, an obvious example. So that to me is like what I'm super passionate about, and kind of where we are at the life cycle of Wilder World. Having the tools to now be able to really to start to tell the story. And I think what's unique in this instance is the story is communal, and it is it's kind of co-generated, if you will. So being able to do that together, and what we call in Wilder World living the lore. So I think that is like the opportunity. And I think, more often than not, we're utilizing things that we're leaning on things that have come in the past. And so that's really what I'm inspired by, is how do we tell new stories and kind of use the metaverse as the medium to have them come to life.
Beautiful.
Thank you for
Thank you
those
for that.
inspirational answers. Really appreciate it. And since all of you, our audience, thank you very much, have made it to the end of the CEO Roundtable, you are clearly a genius. You can't get enough of the metaverse. We love you. Thank you. And we also love our sponsor, Lizard Labs, for hosting the Metaverse Roundtable X Space tomorrow, where you can learn more about Sandbox, Decentraland, Wilder World, and Future Versus team and community. Click that link in the chat and the description right now. Set your reminder. Let's talk more about the metaverse. I want to see every one of your beautiful PFPs in that space tomorrow.
That's right. And guys, that is all the time we have for tonight. A huge thank you to our speakers for such an insightful discussion tonight. We really appreciate your time and attention. And to everyone involved over the past, guys, 2.5 months to put this roundtable together, it wouldn't have been possible without you. You know who you are. Miss Gex, Miss Teen Crypto in the chats. Thank you. My co-host Andrew Wall, our sponsor Lizard Labs. 1,300 of you tuned into this broadcast. We appreciate every single one of you, your time and your attention. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on your way out to support us for the next roundtable, which is coming soon. Until then, have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.
Let's go. Thanks,
Thank you
team.
all.
Rock on.
Thank
See you in the
you.
metaverse.
Yep.
Cheers. Bye bye.